Burt Ward, I have been reading your autobiography.
And you're still willing to come here?
Are you okay? You got hurt a lot. Can you watch those old episodes without feeling the pain of all those stunts that they made you do? Like, do you get pain in your leg when you watch, some of those?
Well, I have been suffering recently from a severe pain in the ass and a swollen ego. But other than that, no. I enjoyed the show. It was really dangerous to make a show. I had no idea. I was a young kid. It was the first day of filming. I came in on the set at about 7 o'clock in the morning, got in my costume, and they said, Burt, the very first shot is going to be the scene that's going to become the opening of every show where the Batmobile comes out of the Batcave very fast, makes a left turn, the sign goes down, and you drive off. I said, okay, great. And I got in my costume, which was, I'm telling you, you wouldn't want to be in a costume. Not like that. Especially 14 hours a day. But I got in the Batmobile, and I looked over, and I was expecting to see Adam, but he wasn't there. Instead, there was another gentleman dressed as Batman. And I said, well, who are you? He says, my name is Julie. And I said, oh, well, why isn't Adam West here? He says, well, I'm a stuntman. This is a very dangerous stunt. That's why they're using me and not using Adam, because they don't want him to get hurt. I said, oh, well, that's nice. I said, well, wait a minute, why is it so dangerous? He said, we got to come out at 55 miles an hour, we're going to make a sharp left turn, sign's got to go down, everything's got to work perfectly, and, it is just a dangerous shot. So I thought about that, and then as they started to roll the camera, I said, excuse me, wait a minute. I called over the assistant director, and I said, I don't understand, they had a stuntman for Adam, but they don't have a stuntman for me. I said, don't I have a stuntman? He said, yes, you do. He's over having coffee with Adam West. I said, why is it that he's not sitting here instead of me? He says, well, because he doesn't look like you. I said, wait a minute. Why didn't you hire somebody that would look like me that's a stuntman? I said, you couldn't find anybody, so you got to do your own stunts. And that was the first of 5 out of the 6 days that I went to the emergency hospital. In this case, the car came out at 55 miles an hour. They made a sharp left turn, but unexpectedly, my door flew open. As my door flew open, the centrifugal force was throwing me out, and I reached over and caught my little finger on the gear shift knob, which helped me in the car, but pulled my finger out of the socket. Knocked over the lights, the camera guys got knocked over, and they rushed over afterward and they said, Burt, are you all right? I said, yes, except my hand, which is swollen up twice the size, and they said, look, we got to get you to the hospital. I said, great, because I'm in a lot of pain, and we'll do that just as soon as we get the shot. And that was like 3 hours later. So that was the first of my experiences, and it was pretty wild at that time. Very dangerous show. I'm going to add one thing. Near the end of the series, they took out a life insurance policy on me, and I swear by the last 2 episodes, I thought they were trying to collect.
Jamie, what do you got?
Good afternoon. It's great to talk to all of you. For Adam and Burt, you got to work with, in addition to Ms. Newmar, some fantastic, legendary, iconic actors and artists on the show. Liberace, Bruce Lee, Vincent Price, Milton Berle. Do you have any memories of working with them, and who was your favorite?
Oh, we have so many memories. I mean, we had many great stars. And Julie, I have great memories of working with you. We just let that lie. You want to say something, Julie, about working with me?
Drop dead gorgeous Adam West. He's got great lips. Well, look at the film, you see what I mean. He wears his mask, oh my goodness. Particularly in that soda sipping scene with the straw from the falling in love with you. Writing part too, didn't you?
Yeah. You could get away with so much in that costume. Julie was a marvelous Catwoman. She has the world's tallest legs. And, there was a sexual tension that had to be created between Catwoman and Batman to make it, really interesting to the adults. We did the show on several levels, as you know, and that's, I think, much of the reason for the longevity. Now, are you all from different places or all in one family? You're all pretty good writers, right?
I think they're over 18, so you can say what you wanted to say in the first place.
Well, let me tell you something. You can write any damn thing you want.
Just to answer your question from my standpoint,
What is that, Burt?
one of the people you mentioned was Bruce Lee. Before Batman started, it just was coincidental that I lived in the same complex that Bruce Lee lived in. And I was a black belt in karate, and he and I used to spar together. And when we did the scene on Batman, it was very important to the producers because the same executive producer, William Dozier, who produced Batman, was the one who went to produce the Green Hornet. And that's why he brought Keto and Williams onto the show to promote the show, that new episode. So anyway, long story short, they wanted us not to try to really fight, and we were both supposed to be really good guys. But I did fight with Bruce, off camera and in real. And in fact, I guess a piece of trivia is Bruce Lee's first cinematic fight scene of his career was fighting me.
You know what I heard is that the Green Hornet and the Batman show, you had 2 fight scenes together, but Bruce Lee said, there's no way I'm going to lose.
He didn't win.
And so they sent it to the writers, and then they said, well, it's going to be a standoff. Is that what really happened?
Yeah, no, but in reality, I liked sparring with Bruce. He was a great athlete. I mean, there are some people that talk a game, but this is a man that he trained 8 hours a day. And, for those of you that remember him and his son Brandon, I remember when Brandon was 6 months old and Linda, his wife, and Bruce and I would go down to Chinatown and have authentic Chinese dinner in Los Angeles. And because he was from Hong Kong, he knew everything to order. So it was really a great experience working with him.
And he could knock a lit cigarette right out of your mouth without you knowing that. That's how we became such good friends with him.
It's Rocky. So professional.
Burt, you couldn't have the Batman song? Or at least the Green Hornet?
So we've had 6 incarnations, big screen incarnations of Batman, and they've gotten darker and darker in tone as the series have progressed. But yet the television series never went that way. There was something fun and exuberant about it. Can you talk in perspective about what you think made that show so unique? Because it was different than anything else on television at the time in regard to.
Can I ask you something? This was a different time in history. Between the 1950s and the 1970s, there arose something called camp. Camp is really an exaggeration. But thereafter, things got darker, drearier, more depressing. Of course, we had a bunch of wars there going on, but oh boy, did we enjoy those 60s, didn't we?
Yeah, I think the 60s was a great period, and I think for our show, look, Warner Brothers has done a fantastic job with the Batman franchise, but they appeal to different people, and the theater market is different than the television market. We get a lot of young kids growing up, and in our show, it was something for everybody. Adam and I played it very straight, so for kids, it was the hero worship, of the characters. And then for the people who remember the comic book, there was the nostalgia for the adults. And for the teenagers and the college kids, which at that time was almost an impossible audience to capture, the double meanings and all the innuendos that Adam and I did really caught, and that's what became why I think Batman was so successful, because we appealed to everybody.
And just real quick, so much has been made too in the film incarnations of the bat suits and in the Robin outfits. What were they like back in the mid-60s? Were they comfortable for you? What was the experience like of putting that spandex?
What do you want to know that for?
Horrendous. I used to call my tights the python pants because they strangled me to death. But I know working with Adam, we made long hours in that bat cave. And of course, my dear friend, I love him to death, but he looks cross-eyed in that mask. And if you've been under those hot lights for a long time, you're starting to melt. The slightest thing can make you start laughing, and just never stop laughing. But we got through it, and I'm sure Adam had some crazy things that I did that drove him nuts as well.
I think any actor who plays Batman or Robin or whatever, probably wants to complain about the costume and its restrictions in certain areas.
Well, I hear you that your dresser had to have a hair dryer in order to keep everything dry around the...
I beg your pardon? This is the strangest thing you've ever said.
Well, it's in the history books.
You're right, Julie.
Tell us the story.
Well, because, actors complain about this. I just hope that I have the same 12-pack that Ben Affleck does.
Well, my costume was very comfortable. It had a zipper down the back.
It was painted on you.
Licorice melted over me. No, that was very comfortable.
I have a question for all three of you. Who was your favorite villain, and what was your favorite episode?
For me, it was the first one, with Frank Gorshin as well. It was really setting the tone for the show, and it worked. It really worked beautifully. And Frank was manic and wonderful as Riddler, and his moves. And to play opposite Frank was great for me, because I love that kind of on-the-edge, dangerous acting and improvisation and all these things you do.
Besides Frank, you had Burgess Meredith, you also had Cesar Romero. I mean, all three of them were incredible character actors for the villains that they played. Burgess Meredith came off of the alumni of Twilight Zone. How was it working with all three of them together?
Well, it was a terrific experience, wasn't it? I mean, for example, with Burgess Meredith, I loved it. Because he was able to use that cigarette holder, and we'd stand face to face, and he'd let the smoke drift up under my cowl. Very irritating. But you see, these things work for an actor. Use the costume, make it work for you, make anything, all the little nuances, stuff off the wall, work for you.
Burgess said that this was the favorite role of his life. How many of them did he do with you?
I don't know, I lost count. Fred, are you there? How many did
Burgess Meredith,
Burgess.
4 or 5, maybe? Over 100 shows, right?
120, and I think they're all in the new Blu-ray DVD. Warner's Home Entertainment.
Available November 11th.
Yes, coming up. We can finally release the date. 40 years I've been asked. And now I can say, here it is.
All right, this isn't a free-for-all. There's no shot of questions. You raise your hand.
Hi, it's an honor to watch all of you. Like on TV, so this had to be cut out. But what was your reaction when you saw this series in Blu-ray in high definition? And it's just a trailer, phenomenal, like crystal.
Yeah, our reaction in seeing the question, it just knocked me out of my socks. I thought, this is incredible. And truly it is. I mean, it's the way Batman should be seen with the new DVDs. It will amaze you. You will be fascinated, titillated, maybe exonerated.
Come right back there. With the GoPro. Go.
Were there any times for all three of you guys that you guys actually could not stand playing characters anymore?
The question
The question is, what day does the Blu-ray come?
somebody's not playing again.
The question is, did you ever reach a point where you didn't want to be your character?
Yes. A few months after we stopped filming, I thought, well, that's it for the career. I'm totally typecast. And, you create a character that's memorable. I was lucky enough to do that. But you're typecast. And every time I went in to meet producers and people about doing a film, a wonderful film, then they would get together and say, oh no, we can't let Batman go to bed with her. You know what I mean? The leading lady. But those dinosaurs in Hollywood are now gone. And we go on. Isn't that wonderful? We just got out last them.
Matt.
For Adam and Burt, one of the most thrilling parts of the show for the audience was the weekly death traps. Could you talk about your experience with those and anything that stands out?
You'd like to
Oh, the cliffhangers?
The death traps themselves.
Oh, the worst.
the death traps.
Oh, they were all death-defying terrible. Oh, the scars. I have a sharp bite on my leg still. You know, it's amazing you mentioned that because it occurred to me.
Yeah, boiled in oil.
Boiled in oil. We got.
I put this big magnifying glass over you.
We got fried. We were fried. We were grilled.
Yes. The tigers.
Poor Burt, the tigers.
Yeah, that actually was incredibly dangerous.
He was very good.
I don't know about courageous or stupid. I think that's stupid.
They had to walk the plank. The tigers.
No.
Yeah. And I saw the guys throwing more raw meat.
No, they
raw
actually,
meat to the tigers.
what happened was, on that shot, I was over 3 Bengal tigers, real, they weren't pet tigers, they were movie tigers where they were somewhat controllable, but they were still wild.
No, they weren't controllable.
And what happened was, I was about 14 feet above them. I asked the trainers ahead of time what was their capability of jumping high, and they would jump 19 to 20 feet. I was hung over with my head over the end, my arms were tied to my side, and just to give you an idea, 10 feet above me, okay, they're below me, 10 feet above me was the camera crew in a steel cage. So you know that you look up there and you see them safe, and you look down, and what happened is that during the scene, the tigers were just really milling around. But the director in his cage, who was nice and safe, said to the trainers, can't you get them to do something? So in reality, they actually hung meat over my head and then jump up at my face. I pulled against the restraining straps, and after the shot, they said, Burt, that was so realistic. Oh, sure, I was scared to death.
It was Catwoman's first show.
We're actually going to show a split screen of that a little later on tonight at the panel. Magnificent. The tigers do look good. All righty.
Yes, I have a question for Julie Newmar. What aspect about playing a villain did you enjoy the most?
I think the sassiness of the character. I just had so much fun with it. It's like being a 6-year-old, you know, hatching plots and schemes and deceptions. It's kind of I thought of it as a kind of blacklist mentality, you see. Catwoman is to die under, of course, so, of course, she could be your mother if your mother owned a skateboard, or Catwoman, she was a dominatrix of one's dreams, perhaps, or S&M, which would stand for safely manipulated.
I never got that.
Research.
Jackson. All right, here in the back.
Adam, you've returned to the world of Batman a couple times in the animated series. What has it been like for you to return to the world but not be Batman himself?
I'm not even sure what you mean by that, but not be Batman himself.
Well, he's played the Grey Ghost in the animated series in the 90s. He was Thomas Wayne in the later Batman series.
So he wants to know about the other times you've played in Batman roles, but not in Batman, for Batman the animated series and things like that.
Your life history.
Well, these are really simple adjustments if you know what you're doing. No big deal. That's what they pay me for.
How about that here?
I write for a horror website. I wonder if anyone could remember a story about Vincent Price and could tell us.
About what?
Vincent Price.
Yeah,
Sure. Well, go ahead, Burt, please.
well, we had a scene well, we had a lot of scenes during the next episode, but there was a scene I had actually talked about a little earlier where Adam as Batman and Vincent Price as Egghead were having a confrontation, and Vincent Price had a chokehold around my neck, and the idea of the scene was that when they said roll camera, that he would take an egg and break it over my head, and then and then do a second egg and break it over my head, and then he and Adam would have Batman, Egghead dialogue. And for some reason, both of them kept screwing up their lines. And after that 9 takes, I had egg going down my back into my underwear. That is so uncomfortable. So finally, when they got it right, I was originally supposed to just pick up an egg and throw it at Vincent Price, but I actually got a little upset. Okay, so I picked up a dozen eggs and I smashed on his head so hard that the egg tilted over a little bit. That's a true story. You can see it in the show. You'll see his egg tilted right at the end of that scene.
But the whole crew started to throw eggs.
Oh, that's true. We had great egg fights because Adam and I had planned this. That just for the heck, every once in a while when you're doing something and everything is so serious, and like I was 21, 22, and 23 when I did Batman. The youngest person on the set besides me was Adam, 37, and everybody else was like 45, 50, 60, and then nothing against that, but they were the greatest, technical people you could ever have. But the point of it was, for me, like a kid, being on that set, serious every day, do this and do that. Even though our show is funny, it's serious work that you have to be on time, you have to do this, and you have to be in the right spot or get yelled at. So the long and short of it is to have a little fun. Boy, we threw those eggs, and we started throwing them at the crew, and then the crew realized that what we were doing, and they had tons of eggs. It became a huge egg fight. It was therapeutic.
It really broke the tension.
Yes, and the eggs.
Straight back there to the red.
With the license now being open to so many companies,
Wow.
how's it feel that all these new classic Batman TV series, like action figures from Mattel, NECA, and Hot Toys, how's it feel to see all these new product and your faces on them and how realistic they are compared to the 60s product?
I think it's totally fabulous, except for the bobble head. That was embarrassing.
I love them, and I must tell you something. The manufacturers who are putting out the products now have done such an incredible job. I have seen some of with the skin textures of Adam and I in costume that, honestly, I've shown to people and they think of photographs. I mean, you can zoom in, you can see the texture, you can see the little cracks on the lips. I mean, it's so photorealistic. So I wish, like when I was a kid and you had toys to play with, they weren't very well realistic, but the stuff today is fantastic. And I have to applaud Warner Brothers for finding the best manufacturers probably in the world to be able to do this kind of products.
And I love my Batman Barbie doll. Batman just dress and undress him all day. It's just ridiculous.
Right here. Louder, please. Were there any mementos you kept from the show? Any souvenirs?
Well, Mike left a lot many times, especially toward the end of the show. Some of the guys at the gate became my friends. And if I drove off with the trunk of my car slightly open, they would slip a little something in there occasionally.
You have a lot of toys, batarangs, bat rackets.
Yes, consequently, I have a lot of stuff. Now, if you'd like to buy a cape, I have all of my original scripts, 120 with my own notes in them. And as part of the DVD, I believe I will be reading one of my scripts a little bit and showing some of the notes, just for fun.
Corner over there in the green.
Julie, you look absolutely amazing. So I'd like to know your secret for looking so young, and I know you had your birthday recently, so what's the best part about being 80 now?
Oh. Well, Okay, something happens to you when you get younger and younger, but I was a ballet dancer. And so I was always sort of had that kind of posture and that kind of movement, and it made it especially easy to play a cat-like character. It was simply second nature. That's, I think, you know, when I was a little kid, I used to go to Griffith Park in Los Angeles, and I would ride on the carousel, and carousels go backward, they don't go to the right, they go the wrong way. And I would ride around, and every once in a while I would catch the brass ring. And that's what happens in your life, I think, when the character, and you make a perfect fit. And it just seems to happily stay within people's minds when they remember you as that character. So it has been a total blessing for me to have been in this series and play this character. And I'm always very grateful for it.
Right here in the black shirt.
Thank you for the question.
This question is for all of you. I'm just wondering, with the legacy of the series itself, is there anything that you took away that you're really proud of that you've done with the series itself?
Took away.
With what respect?
With regard to any type of legacy, something that you're really proud of about the series, from a gut instinct type of thing.
Well, I think all of us are proud that we brought a lot of happiness to millions and millions of kids all across the world. That I think that our shows had some very positive things for kids. Even though it was funny for adults, there was scenes like, you know, I'd start to throw something down, and Batman would say, "Oh, Robin, we can't litter," or "Button your seatbelt," or "Hold your hygiene, Batman." I mean, there was a lot of good stuff in there, and I feel good about it because we made so many, and I believe hundreds of millions of people happy, and we gave them a positive outlook with a world that is becoming increasingly dangerous every single day. To have our show come out, especially now, is going to bring, I think, a wonderful breath of life and humor and fun and imagination and positive things for kids. So I'm really very proud of that.
Yeah, thank you, Burt.
All right, back here in the blue.
Thank you to all three of you for all of that happiness. Has it been sad for you on a personal level that the show has not been available on home video for all these years? It almost stands alone as the thing everybody has wanted for so long.
11/11.
I'll take that.
I think in reruns, you know, Batman has been on reruns. Yes, we have wanted the show to come out for a long time. That is probably the single most asked question. Is, you know, when is the show going to come out? And we honestly didn't know, but we're thrilled that it's coming out now. And in a way, it's actually wonderful that it comes out now because not only do they have all the adults that watched us as kids, but those adults have children. And those, and in some cases, grandchildren who watch us in reruns. So the actual audience for Batman, our show, is probably 2 or 3 times bigger than we had even when we were prime time.
Very far back in the blue.
I live in Tokyo, and in the 60s, I live in Tokyo, and in the 60s, the Batman TV show led to a huge boom in interest in Batman in Japan. And I'm wondering if you had any sense then from now of the international interest in the show back in the day.
Did you have a sense of the international show?
Yes, yes. When I walked into a hotel room in Hong Kong and I was speaking in Chinese, I suddenly got an intimation that this thing was global. And Batman is either #1 or #2 with Lucy in China, for example, and other places as well. Look, I feel that we are the luckiest actors in the world, and I'm sure they are. That we had a chance to create characters with longevity, characters that people love as they grow up, and as they get older, they have wonderful laughs with us. And like Burt said, I've helped to make people happy and bring laughter. You know, if you can't laugh at yourself and other people in situations, something's left with one another and ourselves and enjoying the new Batman.
All right, here with that floor hat.
This series it's been one that has spanned generations. What do you think about the show that has made it stick not just with audiences from the 60s, but audiences today?
Well, I'm just hoping I continue to span generations.
Good writing. Wonderful writing, great producing. That's it.
Sure.
They spent a lot of money on the show. It cost quite a lot to produce. And they spent a lot of money on making the very first show. A great deal went into it. And it was quite an experiment. What were you about to say?
I was going to say, it's funny. When something works, it really works. I mean, people try so hard in this industry to make things that people enjoy, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. But in the case of what we did, I believe, that was so different than every other show in history, was that for the very first time, we actually put on the audience. In other words, instead of like a police show where it's always so serious, or a medical show and it's always about health and stuff, here we were playing bigger-than-life characters, which of course kids love things that are bigger than life. But we played it seriously, and we taunted the adult audiences with our innuendos, and everybody came away with something that they felt was special to them, very special to them. Like, oh, I see what's really going on. And yet the kids loved it, and it was bigger than life. And I think that's what really entertainment is to be able to go and see something, especially in your own living room, that is something that you couldn't do, but you could vicariously experience it through the actors as bigger than life.
Yeah.
Hi, three of you are such phenomenal comedians. Was there ever a guest star on the show who didn't get the type of comedy you were going for?
No. Yeah, Joe Bones, Bluray. Quite a few.
It was until it was last show.
It was the very last show of her lifetime. But the secret of it was playing it very straight. As a matter of fact, the comments of the head producer was straight, straight, straight. Do not play it for laughs. And the straighter you play it, the harder you fall, the more silly you really are, the more ridiculous it really is. And that's the secret. You've got to be absolutely serious.
Well, you have to know what is funny, and you have to be funny. You have to think funny. And you have to have comedy timing. It's essential. But, you can't wink at the camera. You can't let anyone think that you think you're funny. You just have to appreciate the material and play it funny. If Batman sees Jill St. John being burned to a crisp in that, whatever the thing was, and he looks over the side and lets a little tear come from under his cowl. Now, she was a go-go dancer in the show. I was supposed to say, what a way to go. I said, what a way to go. Nobody understood. They said, what the hell's that guy doing? What is he doing? I had to fight for weeks to do it that way. But then they realized this kid's doing something that's maybe going to work.
Back there with my little pony shirt.
You talked earlier about the lost art of paint, and I wanted to know what you guys made of the Joel Schumacher film Batman and Robin, which is perhaps not as good in tone, but basically a remake of your series in many ways.
I don't even think about it. honestly, guys, I mean, they do their thing and we did ours. Now, if they want the Dark Knight, I'm the Black Knight, but the thing is, they're all talented, and the production has been incredibly good, and the money spent, and the things available to produce those movies. And we just have a few costumes, some wonderful actors, slap the makeup on, and think funny, and go to it. That's it. It's no big deal.
The very furthest corner of the check site.
So 45 years later, we're still talking about this Batman series. Do you think that's a testament to what you guys did?
Yes. It is, and I'll tell you something else, but it was a combined effort of the writers.
Oh, sure.
We had to, I mean, you know, there was talk earlier about how beautiful the new DVD is with, you know, the HD and all that. We had probably the best industry camera, the best writers. We had 80 men on our crew. I mean, our show was at the time, like so extravagant that, as I understood at the time, 20th Century Fox was losing almost $250 million a week just to make it. It was so state of the art. So I think it's because everything worked, the talent worked hard, everybody worked hard, and we made a successful, wonderful show. There's no reason that 500 years from now, people will still want to see it. I believe that.
And there's another factor. We just got lucky. Luck. Very important. You better be ready. What do we got here?
We've got the gentleman right there.
Burt, what was your favorite holy blank Batman
Oh, you know, a lot of kids ask me that question.
Only underwear.
No, I didn't say that. You know,
only guacamole.
They steal my line.
Only sudden incapacitations. Wait a second amendment.
Only raspberries for a sugar.
Only false front.
There, you see,
Only shamola.
you're admirers.
Yes. And you have excellent taste, I will say that. All of the stuff that I said was originally written by the writers. Unfortunately, not all of the writers got it. And Adam and I really had to go to work in some of the shows because we didn't want to lose that special chemistry. And I've got to share something with you, and I think that this might be something you don't know. And that is that besides being actors that did our job, Adam and I have a unique chemistry that when we work together. And in a lot of places we would go and people just look at us and start laughing. And we do both of us think a little differently. I would like to think it's more perceptive as opposed to more insane, but we do have a very good friendship, and he brings out a wild side in me, and together we kind of control what we did as best as we could do it. But in terms of the answer to your question, I didn't have a single one, but where we did have ones that didn't work, I got a chance to, you know, to change it. Like there was a scene where I thought that Batman got killed in the movie. You remember that scene on the pier? You know what I mean? Because he was running around that great line. You know, some days you just can't get rid of a bomb. You know, and I thought he was dead. I said, "Holy heart attack, Batman!" You know, but we had great stuff, and I have loved. I want to say this. I've loved working with this man. He is one of my dearest friends. He has fought everybody to keep that character during the series the right, and the two of us have fought so hard. Whenever we would make appearances, even in costume, we would never take off our masks. We would never in any way degrade the character for kids. When we were in costume, we were those characters. And Adam has done the most fantastic job. And in my opinion, no disrespect to anybody, there is only one Batman, and that's Adam West.
I'd like to talk about the Bat computer. I always thought it was like so silly to have questions or clues that you inputted into this computer and you would get the answer, but the other day I'm like,
son of a bitch, we all have bat computers now, like Google and, you know, just whatever, Wikipedia. At the time, did that seem like just an absurd concept to just input this fake data into this spreadsheet and a little piece of paper spat out? What was that like? Especially in regards to us doing this all day long with our phones. We all just sit here constantly looking up stuff.
The absurdities that the show presented were remarkable. I mean, there are some Batman versions, I suppose, that are somewhat grotesque. Our Batman was maybe bizarre to an extent, and yet very human. You know, Batman is a little crazed, but he's vulnerable, and he's real. He's a human being, and he has all the elements that you possess, and you, and you, and you, but he, because of his drive, his ambition to fight crime and avenge his parents' death, he took more than better care of himself. He trained himself mentally and physically to the point where he was great, but he was so vulnerable. That's the thing, and we all know this. Now, when we do it in a comedic way, you adults can laugh along with us, and the kids understand all that, and they keep watching until they grow up, and then they let their kids watch.
Time for a couple more questions about Batman, the complete television series, which is available for pre-order right now at your favorite retailer. Right there.
Yeah, was there ever a moment that you, looking at the scripts and the stories that you just could not take seriously before filming, that you just couldn't wrap your head around? Like,
Was there ever a series or a script or a story that you really couldn't take seriously?
Well, I never took any of them seriously. But you have to play it, as Julie mentioned, you have to play it seriously with the right comedic timing. And you have to know what's funny and you have to think funny. But never let the audience think that you think you're funny. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
Oh, I can give you an example if you want. There was an example of an episode with Yvonne Craig who played Batgirl. And we had brought Batgirl into the Batcave to see our crime-fighting paraphernalia. And so there was this scene.
This could be dangerous.
Get a grip on this. There was a scene where we were going to leave the Batcave in the Batmobile. Adam driving, as Adam as Batman driving, me as Robin on the right side, and Yvonne Craig as Batgirl sitting in between us. And the idea was we were going to give her this bat gas, and because we didn't want her to know where we had our Batcave. So the scene starts with one shot where we had given her the bat gas, and now she's knocked out, and so and we're about to take off, and I have a little bit of dialogue, just very little bit of dialogue between Adam and I, where I say, you know, Batgirl is really very beautiful. And he has a line as well, Robin, I'm glad that you noticed it. Well, something like that. Well, my dear friend Adam is really good, and he rarely makes mistakes. So to go through 14 takes of making a mistake, I knew something is coming. Now you get, what happens is that these directors, they all are on time schedules. And if you only have so much time to get, if you don't, he's going to get in trouble, production goes behind, money is lost, all this kind of, it gets real serious real quick. So I knew he got to the point where he was now, had them, where they were going to use this next take, no matter what. Right? That's his brilliance. He knows how far he can stretch the elastic. Anyway, so what happened was, here's the 15th take. And I said, gosh, Batman, that girl is really beautiful. And Adam has this line, well, Robin, I'm glad you noticed. It shows the oncoming thrust of manhood. Now, I could hardly keep from laughing. I had tears coming down my mask, trying to keep a straight face. The producers, everybody, they were so anxious. They didn't notice it. They didn't really pay attention because they were in trouble. About a week later, when the censors came, and we got called in the office and got chewed out, you know, for doing that. But you know something? That was the kind of way we dangerously made our show. Adam and I had a pact where we knew we could go so far, and we'd stretch it a little bit farther for all those people that enjoyed innuendos.
All right, one more. No? Right here.
We've talked about all the great people that were on the show with you. Was there anybody that was asked to be on the show that declined?
You know who Frank Sinatra wanted to be on the show? Do you know what character he wanted to play? The Joker. Yeah, everyone, big stars wanted to be on the show, and people from movies did not work in television. But their kids said, "Oh, I want to go on the set. I want to meet Batman. I want to meet him." And big stars would come down and meet these guys. Oh my goodness, and they begged to be on the show. Don't have to write special material for them. And a lot of times they ended up in that walkway where the windows open up. What do you call that?
The window walk.
Oh, that's called something.
Well, I can call it that if I want. Well, call it the pop-out.
Yeah, describe how you did that. Describe how they
Well,
built the set.
we put the building on its side at an angle that was navigable by Burt and me, and then we'd get down and pretend like we were walking up the side of the
And
building.
they would hold the back of your
Yeah, well, the cave's just for gravity. There was a fishing line on the cave. Stretching it out.
And they put this house down on the guest star so that he would kind of pop up like this, you see. And he was always at some weird angle looking at you, right?
You know, these guys had to wait in that box, sometimes for an hour and a half. And then they'd pop out. You never knew who it would be. Sammy Davis Jr. even.
That's going to wrap it up for us, guys. We are heading out. We got to go over around a panel in the Hall H. I hope you guys can get in. It's going to be a blockbuster, great footage. You can shoot it right here, right now, but there is no autographs, no storm with the stage. A couple of shots.